First is the acknowledgement of remote commissioners. So Robin, if you could just speak.
Hi, I'm here.
We'll move next to Selma.
Hi, everyone. Having a little sound issues.
Working on it, Brad.
How about now? How's that sound? Yeah.
Right.
Sound but no video.
One thing.
Okay, now we got video. No sound.
I think it is.
No video and no sound for folks that are in the room. It looks like you're muted on Zoom.
Can you hear us?
Can hear ya.
Our mute was on by mistake. The video isn't on, so. Oh, try.
There we go.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see us and hear us.
Good job.
Picture and some beyond.
Lou,
Do you hear us okay, Chip?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, nice work, everyone. Get that work.
So low here, yeah.
Oh, all right. So we just.
We lost the sound again.
I would just use a TV area. Don't you log in on yours?
We got it sound back.
Oh, they got it back?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
That way if it happens, just. use this and then turn.
We lost Jeff though. We gained a Chip and we lost a Jeff.
You got this. We got an in-person Jeff right here.
We're gonna know Jeff.
We can't hear you again.
It's like it's muting itself. Cannot hear.
Mute. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, so turn it off here. There we go. Cool.
Maybe interesting.
Yeah.
You want to switch?
So
You want to move here?
Coming and going.
all right, we should be all set now.
Excellent. All right. All right, so we are in public forum and didn't I see somebody named Will there? Oh, there it is. Okay. Will, do you wish to talk during public forum with us today?
No, it's okay. I'll just be listening. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. All right, so Tim, did you want to say anything today? No. No? Okay. All right, so we will close out public forum, move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda?
I'll move that.
That's moved by Helen. And seconded by Greg. Any comments, questions on the contents? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we move on to item section 5, which is action items. The first action item is 5.1, janitorial services contract. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance and City Council the execution of contract with Janitech Services as outlined in our board package.
I will move that.
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Greg. Discussion to be led by Nick.
Great. So another RFP process, request for proposal that we submitted publicly or published for new janitorial services, a new contract at the airport. We bid this out late last year and through awesome work with Jeff and Hannah and a couple other folks that were comprised of the panel. We did receive 2 bids back, 2 qualifying bids back, and we're able to score both on quality, experience, and of course a major factor was cost of the contract itself. Through that scoring process, Janitech Services was selected as the lowest qualified bidder on this RFP. You can see the contract amount in the memo there, which the first year starting March of this year, pending approvals, would be just over $799,000 for the year for not just this terminal facility, but as you can imagine, that's the brunt of the scope of work. We have other various facilities that we also use these services for. This is a multi-year contract which will expire on June of 2026. Partial year that last year because I wanted it to start cycling through on our fiscal years. Hence the expiration June 2026. $799,000 is the contract amount. There are also cleaning supplies and additional services that would be reimbursed up to that additional cost of $240,000. And one of the things that we want to start presenting as part of memos too is where this funding is coming from. You can see that in the memo, and this is part of our O&M operating and maintenance budget, our normal budget, if you will, that is funded directly through our revenue sources and most significantly through rates and charges through tenants, airlines, et cetera. So we're requesting your recommendation for this new contract, unless Jeff and I can want to add.
Just to clarify, it's the lowest price, not the lowest quality.
Lowest qualified bidder, yeah. Yeah, I just said qualified.
Did you? Okay.
Janatech is our current contractors, so they've done a great job. You know, they've had some challenges too with staffing, but we've worked really diligently with them to make sure they're doing a very highly quality work.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Nick on this topic?
Nick, it doesn't mention, you mentioned that this was the same organization that you had last year. I didn't see the previous price of the contract on there, and I was just curious if you have that.
Can I,
Yeah.
would you like me to address
Yeah,
that?
please. Yes.
So this price of $799,000, like compared to what we're paying today, because the contract had actually expired and we added the tip space and stuff, it's about $14,000 less for the first year than we're currently paying. So it's very much on par, but the second year there'll be a little bit more. So very, very reasonable. So from a budget standpoint, it's quite doable.
And they're responsible for the entire airport, is that right? Which includes
Which
the
even
new
includes like
areas.
going into the garage and doing some things, like going over to QTA and going over to, you know, some of our other facilities here. So like our airfield facilities like that. So it's mostly predominantly terminal, which they're here all the time. They're here
Really
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And not every building that we own, it depends on what each negotiated contract and lease agreement is with those various buildings, but like Murray said, it's most of our own facilities that we occupy for the entirety of this building here, including some of the airline spaces and tenant spaces, which roll into their REITs to occupy that space.
Yeah, thank you, Marie, because that was my second question. That is there someone here 24/7? Because I know, you know, someone's airport experience from a customer client standpoint can be really impacted by the quality of bathrooms. So my wife would rank airport terminals based upon that, clearly. So, well, I think this one would rank very highly. So she's never complained about this.
And there's a lot of things that need to be done at night, like the extra shampooing of carpets, waxing the floors, those types of things that we don't do during the day.
And the second year seems to be just through.
All right, anything else on this topic? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries. We move on to item 5.2, so North Hangar lease agreement. So this is a combo action, so bear with me, and I may need to take a pause partway through. So there's two actions that we're going to propose at the same time because they are directly related to each other. So the first part of that is entertaining a motion to approve and recommend that the City Council authorize the conveyance of the North Hangar building at 1150 Airport Drive to Beta Technologies, and authorize the mayor of the city to execute the bill of sale to effect that conveyance, subject to the final review and approval by the city attorney's office, and also to approve and to recommend that the City Council authorize the leasing of the identified space at the airport to Beta Technologies, to authorize the mayor and the mayor of the city to execute this ground lease agreement, subject to final review and approval by the city attorney's office. So do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll move that.
That is moved by Ellen,
Second.
seconded by Greg, and discussion to be led by Nick.
Excellent. So this is another exciting one. I do have Jeff Glassberg. Yep, Jeff Glassberg's on the line as well. Jeff is one of our real estate consultants that's helped us through various real estate and leasing transactions, and an incredible partner of the airport and city, long-term partner. This, just in real quick background, this is physically located just south of our terminal building. It's the first building that Beta Technologies had leased from the airport. This building, a little bit of history, was scheduled to be demolished. The interior of the building, the majority of it was not able to be leased out because of the quality of the interior. We were using a portion of the building for storage of equipment and snow removal equipment, etc. More of the history, Beta Technologies, through the approval process, leased this building back in 2019 from us, with the understanding that they were going to be taking it as is and putting $500,000 of tenant improvements into the building, which would remain with the building. Since then, Beta, of course, as you've seen, has grown, has expanded, now has 2 additional leases with the airport, the small general aviation lease at the Valley West Apron, as well as the large manufacturing site. And this particular building is now what we qualify as their headquarters, their research and development, and various other scope of work within the building. They have put $15 million into this building. They have completely gutted the interior out and truly changed the layout, that this building no longer needs to be demolished. On our books, this was approximately $380,000 of value to the building, which of course is not the case any longer. Because of the improvements and the partnership that we have with Beta Technology, the request to, that's why there's 2 motions on this agenda item, the request to sell the building to Beta Technologies and release the ground space underneath of there was a great partnership. And maybe one of the most important things for me was a net neutral revenue deal for the airport to make sure we're not losing any revenue associated with the cumulative total of what we currently receive on the building. The $500,000 on their original lease was credited as part of that original lease, meaning they did have multiple years of rent credit associated with that. That's since expired, so they were paying us. This new lease has a $380,000 credit on it associated with the purchase of the building. However, there's residual benefits that the airport received that were equal to or greater than that $380,000, including upgrading of parking facilities and the entire ramp in front of their hangar, which essentially would have been on the airport to build for as part of the original deal. What we're asking for, of course, is the sale of this building over to Beta Technologies, releasing it at a net neutral revenue deal, and also include parking revenue for their vehicles, which they currently have around 100 to 125 vehicles parked on our surface lots, making sure that that's charged properly and flexibly, meaning if we need that parking, we're going to reduce that parking for Beta for our passengers, employees, and vice versa, as well as additional landing fees associated with all of their aircraft, not just their electric aircraft, but also their general aviation training aircraft that they accomplish here at the airport. There's a couple of things on the lease term. This is a 30-year lease with 2 10-year options. Just like our other facilities and other leases with Beta, we are requiring a capital reserve account with this lease for the expiration, the demolition, the rehabilitation at the conclusion of the lease, whatever needs to happen, of course, in future decades. Rent increases at a standard rate, typically associated with CPI, although there is a minimum and a maximum. And like I said, parking and aircraft landing revenues associated with this lease, not just at this facility, but at the entirety of the airport. I have already brought this lease to Board of Finance. This was reviewed at Board of Finance on Monday night and approved unanimously, with the expectation that this was coming to Airport Commission. It was all published at the same time last week. The timing and the consistency of this particular lease and the Board of Finance meeting really and other really required us to concurrently move this forward at the same time. Otherwise, we'd be looking at an additional month prior to getting this approved. The city council has not seen this lease in their full capacity. This is tentatively, depending on your vote tonight, this is tentatively going to city council Monday, Monday night, the 12th, I think it is. And again, I do have there's Jeff Glassberg is here too to help answer any questions and to fill in any holes that I might have left out there. I'm happy, both of us are happy to take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions on this?
So just so I understand, the $380,000 purchase price, right, comes from the valuation of the building prior to all of their capital improvements?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the rent credit is essentially based on that as well, right?
Correct.
They paid $380,000, so they're putting that against the first 5 years worth of rent.
That's correct. Yeah, or whatever that time. Yeah, correct.
Right. Okay.
And what is the dollar figure of each year of lease? They have almost 1 day less than a 30-year lease.
What was the last part?
So, well, I mean, it's a 30-year lease, but each year, what is the lease?
Yeah.
What is the dollar figure?
I think cumulative with, and Jeff, if you can add some detail in there, cumulative with the ground rent, the parking revenue, and the landing fees, we're estimating
Oh, I
around
see.
$150,000 to $200,000, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
Today, they're close to $170,000, $190,000. Then that's where that net revenue neutral equation comes in.
And that rental revenue will adjust over time based on changes in CPI.
I have a question about parking. Obviously, Beta is a growing industry, and it's very likely that they're going to be hiring more people. I think even in your memo or someone, I read someplace that they are still looking to hire 50 additional people, whatever it might be.
That's right.
Any ideas how that might impact? I mean, the additional parking, that's not going to come from our parking garage. That's going to be in other locations. Do I understand that correctly?
A couple things. So the 125 spaces that are part of this lease is, and Jeff and I had pretty large conversations during the negotiations, is very important to the airport to be flexible. Because if we need it for our passengers or et cetera, we need that flexibility to reduce that number and to relocate it if needed. If Beta needs those additional spaces, let's say we reduce it by 50 spaces, they need 50 spaces. Right now, they need to relocate those spaces either at their manufacturing site location, which they have significant parking at that location, and shuttle people over here. They have some alternates to use South Burlington's transportation networks like bike, sidewalks, etc. In this lease, it is not on us to find those new parking spaces for them. The flexibility is written into the lease, so we're not on the hook for 125 locations.
So you're comfortable with believing that it's not going to severely impact sort of the customer's experience in terms of finding parking?
That's right, especially as their south manufacturing site continues to expand. They're not fully completed yet on the parking lots over there. So when that's fully operational, there's movement there that they can do.
Thank you.
And of course, that's forecasted, right? I don't know exactly what they need.
Chip is his hand raised, and then I have a question.
I'm off. Thank you. I had the privilege of, when I first got this, I didn't fully understand why this was happening. You know, we have a lease agreement that has another, whatever, 15 or period of time on it. So maybe whether this is Nick or Jeff, I know I found it helpful to try and understand exactly why we were being asked to in essence, change the contractual relationship. I do think it adds some context to sort of what's going on. So whether Nick or Jeff is the right person to provide that explanation to the full commission, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, please.
I'm happy to do that. So the context here is Beta is a growing business and a success story for Burlington and the region. Beta used its cash, in this case over $15 million that it's raised as part of its equity raise to grow its business. It used that cash to make the improvements to the North Hangar. Beta is now seeking to be able to get its cash out of the North Hangar to be able to use that to continue to grow its business. And what Beta asked for was to put this North Hangar property, which was originally leased in 2019, under the same structure that the airport agreed to for the production facility, as well as for the new hangar at the West Valley. And in both of those cases, the city provided a ground lease. Beta then made an investment using their own cash to build facilities on those pieces of ground. And under the terms of those ground leases, Beta then has the option or the opportunity to sell and lease back their improvements so that they can sell those improvements to a financial intermediary, get their cash back, and lease the property under the terms agreeable to the city. Beta was asking to essentially do the same thing now with the North Hangar. So that lease structure had not been in place previously. They came to the city with this ask. So that's an important factor for you to know, is that this is in front of you because it's an ask from Beta. This was not something that the airport originated. And the airport is trying to be both responsive and responsible. And so in putting together a response to Beta, what we were seeking to do was use the limited tools available to the city to be responsible and come up with a structure that's essentially financially neutral to the airport, allowing them to get their cash out, and we essentially don't miss a beat. So that the rental stream to the airport is essentially equivalent. It's just comprised of different components under this new structure. The improvements revert to the city at the end of the lease term. There's a capital reserve requirement under the lease so that they maintain the building, and that there's enough money at the end of the lease term should the city choose to want to remove the building. There should be enough money in the capital reserve to pay for that. So that context, it's a Beta ask, it's the city responding, in a way that tries to use the variables and the tools that are associated with this particular transaction in a way that's creative, but that does not expose the city to any new financial risk and is financially neutral to the city.
Thank you, Jeff. I followed, I think, all the math on the revenue neutrality, but the one piece I'm still not understanding is the sale for the 380, which I appreciate, but I'm not understanding how the city is by then extending the rent credit over the 5 years, how that is that is deemed revenue neutral. That's the piece. I get the, the gross, the rent between, current lease agreement and the gross is about equivalent when you factor in parking and landing fees and all that, but I'm not understanding the 380 and how that is revenue neutral.
So the 380 would be paid by Beta day one to the city, to the airport.
Yep.
And the airport would then credit that back to Beta over 5 years, the first 5 years of the lease term. So the city is getting the $74,000 each year that's associated over that 5 years. It's getting all that cash up front. It's essentially metering it back out as deferred revenue that it's earning over the 5 years.
But is it only because we get the building back at the end of the lease term, or it's torn down where that becomes revenue neutral? Because where I'm looking at it, we have an asset that today is worth 400 grand. We're exchanging that asset for cash, but then we're giving them the cash back. But is it because we get the building at the end of the term back where it becomes neutral, or that's where I'm?
Well, it's both today and at the end of the term. What I'd argue, Chip, is that the city doesn't have an asset that's worth $400,000. It has an asset that was on its books at $383,000. The value of that asset is the revenue stream that the asset generates.
Yep.
And since we're trying to keep that revenue stream essentially equivalent, that's where it's neutral to the city. The underlying value of the building should remain the same if it's based on the revenue stream. That's one. Two, It's not as though the city could recognize its book value for that building in any other way right now. The building is already subject to a multi-year lease that would run to 2050, I believe, under its current terms. So the city doesn't have a market of willing buyers at $400,000 to buy that building and not receive a rental stream. It's not another way to liquidate.
Got it.
I just add to that too, while that's an important piece on the financial transaction, part of the conversations with Beta is there were improvements made that equated to or exceeded that dollar value, like the parking garage, the vehicle parking rehabilitation and the apron rehabilitation. Those weren't requirements as part of the original lease, but those were accomplished. So there's value added back that or less, because there's no expenditures that we have to put into this site because they've already done it. So the cost to us is definitely more than that $380,000, but we were able to negotiate that book value.
Got it. So I will be supporting this. I appreciate the time both Jeff and Nick spent walking me through what is a pretty sophisticated, complicated transaction. I think part of what I was struggling with is this is usually a conversation you have before you sign the lease, not after everything's been papered. And I'm cynical, let's just say. We're all cynical by life. And I was trying to figure out how this is not perceived somehow as a gift. But I appreciate, when you really do dig down into the numbers, and I also I'm comfortable with it that, the end of the term of the ground lease, that building, either is torn down or reverts back to the city, which is exactly the same position we would have been in under the existing lease agreement. So I appreciate that being pointed out to me, and again, also walking me through and bringing me up the curve on this relatively complicated transaction. Thank you.
I have a question. And it has nothing really to do with the lease, but the 50 parking spots where there's flexibility, how do you manage that? I mean, if they're parking there every day, and then next Tuesday, there's a huge influx of people who want to park their car.
Yeah.
what do you call them up and say, whoever has the car, get moved?
Well,
Right.
well, both. Our relationship with Beta is really strong, so we could make those requests. However, formally, the lease does go into the details that we have to give 30 days notice, those types of things. So there's trigger points that we have to follow to change those flexible parking spaces.
30 days notice doesn't sound real flexible to me, in terms of if the parking garage is full. And
So-
I'm driving around looking for a place, I mean,
Yeah, so this.
but I'll
the-
trust you that you'll manage it, but I don't really understand it, but maybe I don't need to.
Prior to us using those locations, this is the furthest location away from the parking garage.
Right.
We need to change procedures, we need to change policy, we need to change parking spaces in the garage, change employee parking. So there's multiple avenues prior to us ever asking this.
Okay.
If I could ask a question, unlike Chip, I'm not cynical, by life. Just kidding. But I am curious about one aspect of this, and maybe it's beyond the scope of this, but, I was just thinking, Jeff, what you were saying about how Beta is looking to get its investment out of this building. Can you just talk a little bit about what that mechanism is, and when they do that, will somebody else actually own the building?
Yes. In answer to your second question, will someone else own the building? Potentially, yes. So the structure is in place, which allows them to do a sale leaseback. In the case of the production facility, Beta found another way to get their money out. So instead of selling to an intermediary, a financial intermediary that would then lease the building back to them, Beta found the Import-Export Bank of the United States and took out a substantial loan on the building, which it's allowed to do under the terms of the ground lease, and got its cash out. So that's one way that they could potentially deal with the north hangar as well. Another way is that they would sell the building to a financial intermediary, or given that this is much smaller scale than the production facility, there might potentially be a company investor or an insider who might play that role in acquiring the improvement and then leasing it back to Beta at terms that make financial sense for the investor. When they acquire it from Beta, they'd be paying cash to do that. That's how Beta would get its money at that time.
And then this lease agreement would transfer to the new owner of the facility?
So the ground lease agreement would be assumable by the new owner if it's an acceptable assignee. The city has some rights to review and accept an assignee under that. So I answered that question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sale leaseback is a fairly common financing mechanism for a company that has a facility or a building, and they want to sort of get the cash out of that building, but still have the rights to be in the building. So they essentially sell it, they sell the building that they own, and then they lease it back from the same people that they just sold it to. So they can get all that cash up front in exchange for payments over time, as opposed to not being able to tap that cash, which is just sort of trapped in the property.
So the person who buys it, or the organization, in essence, is either kind of really supports the mission of Beta and wants to provide some money for them to continue to grow.
Well, yes, I mean, they're also, they're a profit making entity.
They'll make
So,
money on it, but
right.
they also are, in the sense of investor.
Yeah, I mean, generally, the other party wouldn't enter into that transaction unless they thought that the stream of cash flows was going to be reliable in the future.
The way I would describe this, if you're wondering, why go through this? Why would Beta be looking to go through this? Is that it taps another vein of capital. So they've spent all their time raising money in the venture capital markets for their business. There's a subset of financiers who are just all about real estate, who do these kinds of transactions day in and day out. So it expands their universe of sources of money and allows them to find the real estate money to put into the real estate so they can keep their more expensive, frankly, venture capital dollars growing their business.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
So just to just to clarify a little bit more, it's also possible that they could sell it to someone and vacate.
So let's make sure that that question is specific to the North Hangar. The answer is
just to
yes.
the North Hangar. Yeah.
There are other protections in the sale leaseback component of the production facility that were unique to that. There's something called a specific use
Right. But for the North Hangar.
For the North Hangar, yes, they could potentially vacate. And as long as the city is receiving all of the rent it's due under the ground lease and other agreements, the owner of the property is in compliance with the lease.
So does the airport have any say as to who could buy that or not?
Yes. That's an acceptable assignee.
Correct.
Sorry,
We wouldn't have the ability to sell, but that leasing entity would also have to meet the certain criteria of what is allowed to go in there under federal regulations, right? You can't just put a Amazon warehouse in that facility.
Right.
It's to be an aeronautical use.
Right.
FAA
And obviously under that criteria of what can go in there is the criteria of what, not only like functionally, but security wise, because it's really close to the terminal.
That's correct. But inside the lease, there's security protocols that we handle through our airport security program.
One other quick hypothetical, and I don't know if Jeff or maybe even Chip might be able to answer this, but obviously there's large storing of lithium batteries that are on that site, or at least that's what it looks like. I mean, I drove by there before today and they had these huge sort of white boxes, and I looked down there and it said lithium batteries, and obviously that's their business. So, and I'm no expert in that, but supposedly these do have potential for large explosions and such. And as the landlord, unless they obviously did something that was unreasonable, would we as the landlord be responsible for some sort of accident that occurred there?
No, we have indemnification clauses, insurance clauses, everything standard in the lease agreement. And the local fire marshal gets involved, the regulations of storage of those lithium ions, which are why they're in the white boxes and not inside the building. And then they have certain fire procedures and protocols along with VTANG and South Burlington Fire Department to respond to those. So I would say directly, those indemnifications clause should indemnify us from those environmental hazards.
Good, thank you.
All right, commissioners, anything else on this topic? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? We move on to item 6, which is the construction update from Larry.
I guess just Tim, the chair, before, were we voting on both? There were 2 resolutions. Was that on both? Or?
It was one really long resolution of 2 parts.
Thank you.
Okay, I really don't have anything to add to the report I provided you with the existing construction update or AIP projects. We're in the middle of busy closing out a dozen and adding 3 more projects to project closeouts, or 15 closeouts and 6 additional applications totaling over $60 million for funding this year. So I'm here for any questions, but those are pretty much the focus, along with all the environmental aspects we manage every day here. That's all I got.
All right. Any questions for Larry? All right. Thank you, Larry. And
One more.
we move on to item 7, which is most compatibility programs update, also from Larry.
Okay, and of course, Hannah's part of this too. There's not, again, much to add to the report. Phase 1 and phase 2 are substantially complete. There was 1 or 2 windows that, well, there was 3 windows, and for some reason the supplier only sent 1, so there's a couple windows hanging out there that have to be put in, storm windows. I mean, people weren't getting cold. So, so that's pretty much complete. We're closing in for phase 3. We're closing in on the 50 homes for the application this year, which will be another $5 or $6 million for renovations next year. And it includes most of the homes in the 70 DNL line, with a few getting into Winooski with respect to the 65 decibel DNL line. Also, we are meeting tomorrow to have a grid meeting to discuss the outreach portions, and we'll be coming to you for what we talked about last month. That's scheduled for tomorrow with Nick and I to really get out there, because it'll be the Winooski homes that come next because of where they exist. So that's all I have on that report. Hannah, do you have anything to add?
All right, Commissioners, oh, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, thanks for that. I suggest, if you haven't already, reaching out to our housing director and our communications director. They'll be able to provide the best assistance and direction for engaging with community members and overcoming any language barriers, identifying potential landlords, things like that.
All right, Jen. No, we're there.
All right, Commissioners, anything else for Larry or Hannah? All right, we'll move on to item 8.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Item 8 is the financial update from Marie.
Hello, Commissioners, all Commissioners. So this month's report is reporting on the December financial results. Is what you have here. It's the revenue, the expenses that we have for December. We have a sheet in there on the recovery, the revenue recovery metrics, the banking balances, and the AIP, that is our grant receivable report. So year to date, the highlights are, so this is 6 months through our fiscal year. We're halfway through. We started in July 1st, so December was 6 months. We have our revenues year to date are about $14 million. Our operating revenues are continuing to be higher than what we saw the prior year, and some of that's just due to the continued recovery that we've had since COVID. We're mostly seeing those higher revenues predominantly in the parking garage revenues and of course in the car rental revenues. And there's all the detail for all the revenues are in the major revenues. And let's see, all of the revenues that we have on that recovery sheet are all above 100%, with the exception of the PFC revenues. The PFC revenues and the employments are tracking very close together. So the PFC revenues year to date are about 94%, which is similar to where our employments continue to grow. And I know we see month over month that they're increasing. So it's good to see that. The expenses for the year are about $9 million. This is also higher than last year. This was planned predominantly because we have increases in our operating expenses, just that we're experiencing things, salaries and benefits and things like that, which are driven by costs and are also driven by union negotiations. But we also have we're spending more in general on professional consulting services and property repairs. So we have the large project that's going on in the garage. We're replacing all the lighting, putting energy efficiency lighting in there, and the fire alarm replacement. It's a huge garage. It's about an 18-month project, but it's also, it's over a $2 million project for that 18 months. So we're seeing higher repair and maintenance costs due to that. Our cash as of December 2023, we had just under $4 million in the airport operating account. Did not owe the city any money. And then I have the AIP receivable report. On there, I have highlighted, or a little asterisk, I think, we have projects that we're going to be closing out that we're actively working on trying to close out. And so some of those, we can't draw down those balances until we close it out. And then we've been spending a lot of money once we close them out, we get the money back. But other projects we've paid off, our construction that we just wrapped up, like let's say in the November timeframe. So we've been paying some of those bills. And on our residential sound improvement program, that's been moving along fantastic. And so we've been paying bills on that, and we'll be getting that money back shortly from the FAA. So that is, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that anybody has on this month's financial reports.
One quick call out, it's a relatively minor thing, but a call out to it anyways. Under the expense item, you can see that there's been, or a different way of saying it, there's a full balance remaining on our runway de-icing line item. So we have not seen any expenses on that. I know that's different now. We just made some purchases. But a quick shout out because Dave and his team, both on the airfield and operations team, are really drilling into how to use runway de-icing, where to use it, when to use it, and how to save us some of these expenditures, which is interesting this time of year to see that number.
It is not experience has shown that I would normally be seeing some expenditures in that account already, but we did purchase some de-icing, so we will start seeing that. No doubt we will be spending money on that because that's just how it rolls here at the airport. Safety first, but so far. And the only other item that I want to point out, because I do have a footnote on the financial report, at the end of the expenses at the bottom line, I do always want to say this is our operating revenues and our operating expenses. But if you look at our entire budget, there are other items that we include on the budget, particularly expenses that aren't going to show up on here because they're not operating. Good example of this money that you see here is not all available just going into the cash account. We're making every single month, we're putting aside upcoming monies for the upcoming bond payments that we're going to be paying. We're making any capital that we're purchasing. We did purchase some equipment this year already, close to $500,000 in equipment. We purchased that. So you're not going to see that as a direct operating expense, but it is a use of how we're using our money, leases. So we're using our money on that. It's not going to be reflected in here. So I just wanted to, give you an idea of what do we do with this money that we're seeing here. So we have operating revenues, but they are, we have them budgeted throughout in other ways.
Great. Commissioners, any questions or observations for Marie? All right, we're all set. Thank you, Marie. And then item 8.2 is also yours, the FY23 airport audit.
So you have included in this month's package, we did receive in January, the end of January, our airport audit. We had a good season. There were no findings on the airport. So that is always what we want to come out with. It's a long document, and I want to kind of give you some ideas of, especially depending on how familiar you are with audit documents. They could be great reading and very interesting, but I'm going to point out the things that are maybe the more, like if you're going to spend time looking at it, that you'll get the most bang for your time in looking at it. So I always sort of like to point out, one of the things that we always take pride in our numbers, and the numbers are, drive everything in here and have to be accurate, everything about how the year went, whatever, our balance sheet, our income statement, our statement of cash flows. But, one thing we take a lot of time in putting together is, it starts on page 4. It's called our management discussion and analysis, and we write this. So all of that, there's, I don't know, 5, 6 pages, I guess, maybe 7, maybe, I don't know. There's a bunch of pages in here that we have. And we go through and we really want to explain kind of what happened over the years. We take a lot of time to go through and take all of those numbers on all those pages, figure out what it actually means, and bring that, highlight those things and highlight what it meant here at the airport. If I can, I've got a couple of tabs here, things that I want to sort of bring out to you, but this is me trying to explain what this report means to everybody, anybody who's watching and all of you, so that highlight the important things. So on page 6, if you're following along, I always highlight like, hey, what was our net income before our capital contribution? So it kind of means, how did we shake out the year, what we brought in, and after we paid a bunch of our things, was $2 million, $2.1 million. Last year was $500,000, so that was certainly better. Another page that I really like, I think is kind of a good highlight, is on page 9, which is a chart. It says our historical revenues. I really like to look at that because I think year over year, it's got 5 years in front of you. Of course, COVID threw wonky things into there, but it really sort of highlights how we're doing, and you can see it in a really easy snapshot. It groups a bunch of things together. So you're looking at our airline revenues grouped together and our non-airline revenues, CFCs. So year over year, 2023 had ended up 15.5% higher revenues in total over the prior year. So,
When you're talking about page number, you're talking about the number that's on
on the
audit.
bottom of the page, yeah, audit.
On the audit.
Yeah, but I kind of like, I kind of think like that's kind of a good way to give you a snapshot of how we're doing and how we compare year over year. So just to give you an idea on some of those revenues, so our parking garage revenues, we earned $1.4 million more in revenues in 2023 than we did in 2022. So that's a lot, significant. That was by far the biggest increase in these numbers, or 26% growth in that one line item. Our car rental concessions were $458,000 higher than prior year, for 16%. So, just to give you some flavor, our PFC revenues were about just under $300,000 higher than the prior year. And our CFC revenues were almost $700,000 in the higher year, 39% growth in that. The CFCs is a bit of an anomaly. We did have an uptick for 1 year, where we charged the rate to each daily car rental of $6 instead of $4. So we'll actually, we won't see it be like that this year, but that would just sort of help with the operation and opening of the QTA. I just thought you might want to know, a little bit about what happened. Sort of the next item that I thought I would highlight for all of you is our liquidity on page 14. If you're looking at that, that's a really good snapshot of our financial health, right? So what do we have for cash? You can see it across the board. 2020, it looks like in 2020, we had $14 million in our cash, in our unrestricted cash, but we only had $10 million in 23. That might look bad, but in 2020, we had taken out a revenue anticipation note. We wanted to make sure that we would be able to pay our bills given COVID. And so that was $11 million. So we really didn't have, it's an anomaly. But all in all, our total cash and investments is healthy, and it shows you where all that money is in other accounts or reserves and other things that we maybe are required to do by bond. So I always sort of think that's interesting. The whole thing is interesting to me, but in lieu of time, I just will sort of point out we do have our we have a balance sheet, which is fascinating, our income statement, which I also think, these things are all really important to look at, but there's a lot of numbers on there. So it can get a little overwhelming, I think, unless you're like me and you love to look at the detail. The last thing that
glad you love to.
I chose the right profession. You did. And so then, there's all these footnotes. Once you get through the financials, there's another interesting thing, there's statement of cash flows, and that shows you where all the money that came in from what and all the money that got spent. again, I find it fascinating, but something you can look at if you want. All of our footnotes go to greater detail about the kind of accounts that we have. I also like one that I like to look at when I look at other people's financial statements. I like to look at on page 31, the long-term debt, because I always think this year is very boring because it didn't change at all from 2023 to 2022, and that's just because we had refunded those bond payments that were due, and we made our first actual bond payment on July 1st of 2023. So when we look at 24, we're going to see our overall long-term debt reducing again. So you'll see that each and every year that will be reducing. So it's fully paid off in fiscal year 3031. So those are the fascinating highlights, to sort of take this report and try to bring a little understanding, hopefully. But I'm welcome to entertain any questions. You can toss them right at me anytime, either now or if you had a chance to look at this and you have something kind of, doesn't make sense to you, or you want to know a little bit more about why something is stated that way. I always welcome.
Your foot, sorry. A long leg. Wow.
I'll share my favorite page with you, which is the very last page. Marie quickly went through it, and this is a testament to Marie, her skill, her time that she puts in for many months as part of this audit report. You can see all the check marks in no material weaknesses, no findings for both our financial reporting and our PFC financials. So this is a huge testament to Marie, her detail-oriented eyes, and definitely her time she has spent on this over many months. So thank you.
If you were to estimate how many hours you spend on this, how many is it?
Oh, I don't.
That's one number she doesn't like to look at.
Well, just say I spend a little extra time here at the airport. Anybody who knows me and will see me, like, you go home last night. I don't know about that. I probably have some fair competition, but this time of year and getting, this with other obligations, there's always other obligations.
Sure.
But,
Well, I understand that. That's why this is pretty intense.
Well, it
fit
is.
in with
I
all
think you
the
would
other
find that
stuff.
for most, any organization.
Yeah.
Their financial team, too, would have experience with this as well, that there are certain times of the year that's there's a little more bubble, and that's sort of how we look at it. But Chip does has his hand raised as well.
Thank you, Marie. First, thank you for the presentation, and also congrats to the team on such a clean audit report. My question is on the page you ended on 32. Could you explain, I note what jumps out at me is the net pension liability, the addition of the 1.2 million, which is a pretty material. What happened in 23 to cause such a big addition?
You're looking at page 32?
Correct.
You said the pension obligation?
I'm looking at the net pension liability, which was 1.4 million on July 1 of 22. There's a almost a 100% addition in 23. So wondering.
That's a great question. So the city has a defined benefit plan.
Yes.
Which there is actually an actuarial report, and there's a retirement board as well as part of that. And so what they do each and every year is they assess the assets that are held in trust that are part of this pension. They also assess, I would imagine that this is pro rata. They do look at airport, and they look at airport employees, which are airport is we'll say Class B employees. So under the pension plan, there's Class A, which is fire and police. Okay, it's totally separate, totally like a unique part of a subgroup of people. And there's Part B, which is everybody else. So even Burlington Electric Department, all of the city, all of operations, school, everything comes in under Class B. And so the actuarial's job is, he looks at all these assets, but he also looks at the group of employees that are you know, he does his mumble jumble with the stuff the actuary will do, which is really complicated because they're trying to figure out, they look at people's, they look at everything from the age group that you have, they look at how long all those people are there, they look at when they think they'll retire, they look at when they think they'll die and how long, you know, all these averages. So they look at the airports group of people. So, and they also look at the balance of the obligations. I would say because that salaries have been going up, there were some union negotiations, renegotiations, and there was, I believe there was a change in the city chooses, if you've ever read, I've actually read the pension report. If you've read it, or look at that, it talks about this rate of return and these assumptions that the city is making to calculate as all a part of it. So, this is just, we are required years ago. This is a newer requirement that this net pension, probably the last 5 years or so, I don't remember the exact year we started doing it, but that it gets rolled out and we get a piece of this that we believe over time that the airport will be charged with covering employees' pension liabilities.
So
It changes each and every year, yeah.
Yeah, so I spent over 2 years on the pension reform committee, so this is near and dear, but I have not read the report, so I wasn't sure whether, but it sounds like this may be due in part to a modification in the assumed rate of return.
Now, I know there was a change, and I want to say it happened, I think, in 2023 or 20, for the rate of rechange that did make some differences. But again, it looks at the what is the overall obligation? Just knowing that salaries are going up in general, that is going to obviously drive the, the anticipated payout at some point. It also depends on how many people retire during the year, all of that stuff that they look at all of that. That is one area that, is pretty complex. And then they look at how the investments did. So what is that unfunded obligation? So there's an assumption of what they think it'll have to pay out. And the city is not 100% funded in the retirement fund. I forget exactly what the percentage is. It's gotten better and better over time, but there's some obligation as far as the airport that we have.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, anything else from Maria on the audit? All right, I just want to echo that it's great to see a clean audit in my line of work. I don't always see that, but good to see. And I do encourage everyone to read it, not so much for the numbers, but for the narrative, right? This gives you a chance.
That management analysis.
But even in other sections, you can still, it puts the numbers in a way that I think it's more user friendly. If you're not like a numbers person, that there's a lot of narrative here that you can see. So just encourage you all to take a quick perusal through it. Won't be quick, it's long, but anyway, take a ride through it.
Chip's hand up again.
Oh, sorry, Chip. No?
No.
Okay. All right, so that concludes item 8. Item 9 is the director's report from Nick.
I'll keep it relatively brief. I get excited and I can talk a lot and talk about many different things, but there's a couple of highlights in here, and we did incorporate our passenger, our operations, and our parking garage statistics now in this report or in the presentation. Real quick update, and I apologize because you're gonna have to see me in my bathing suit in just a second here.
Maybe the video will stop working.
And I totally blame Jeff for this. Jeff did an incredible job planning for and prepping for a all staff celebration and appreciation party, which wasn't getting rid of the winter blues. It was, we can't wait for summertime. And this was our beach party themed staff party. We also did some employee celebrations. We really thanked our entire employee. You can see the whole staff there eating and going through some of the longevity of our employment. Our average is just shy of 9 years at the airport. That's our average of just over 50 employees, which is pretty incredible in the wide range of each one of our employees. Two in particular just crossed to 34 and 35 years respectively, Dick White and Chip French. Dick White is down on the left there, just crossed 34 years, and Chip French has been here 35 years. He's in the good picture there. Really, really cool celebration, and that's in great part to Jeff and Jillian and the team for putting that all together. Another cool, exciting, amazing inaugural flight that occurred was it last week?
I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, it was last week, a week ago from today, yeah. So last week, January 31st, we celebrated the very first time Breeze Airways landed at this airport, the very first time that particular type aircraft landed at this airport, which is an Airbus 220, and the very first time that plane with that airline, well, I shouldn't even say that a plane went to Tampa, Florida. So this was our very first inaugural flight with Breeze Airways, very successful. The two lower pictures, Jeff again did a really fantastic job coordinating with Tampa International Airport. Jeff and I flew down there. We got to experience based on some of their recommendations, the city of Tampa, but they hosted a party down there. That cake was made. That's a cake. That's a real cake. We ate that cake. Tampa International Airport made that for us and celebrated down there as I made some of the announcements to board the plane and on the plane. Our team put together the stickers. They also made some luggage tag. Tampa made those. Our team, you can see the picture. I think I gave them out last time. We're now creating our own in-house stickers. We were able to hand those out. We had about 80 passengers coming from Tampa to Burlington, which is really high, believe it or not, on a 130 passenger plane for the first flight from a warm destination to a cold destination. We had 130, just shy of 130 people going down to Florida, which means it was a full flight. Very rare. Breeze was very excited. We still are Breeze's top load factors in their network for both the Tampa flight and what's coming up next week, a week from tomorrow, February 14th, a week from today. Yeah, so it was there, yeah. What is our Orlando our first flight with Breeze. So they'll be here 2 times on Wednesdays and Saturdays for both Tampa and Orlando every single week. And we're really looking forward to that. I hope you saw in the news and the correspondence, the day prior to, or a couple days prior to the inaugural Tampa flight, Breeze gave us a call. Jeff and I were actually in Chicago meeting with United Airlines, which was a fantastic meeting. They are very happy with the Burlington market and are looking at expanding here in Burlington, United Airlines. While we're in the streets of Chicago, Breeze also called us and said, you know what, we haven't started there yet, but your pre-sales are doing real good. Let's add 2 more flights. So they're now flying starting May 23rd to a nonstop to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. It's called a nonstop to Raleigh direct to Jacksonville, which means you're going to fly to Raleigh. If that's your ticket, you can get off, or you can stay on the plane and continue to Jacksonville. But it will land in Raleigh. So it's really, really exciting, and we're tracking really good numbers with Breeze Airways and forecasting really high numbers between 30 and 50,000 additional passengers for the airport.
This isn't seasonal. This is
some of them are seasonal. The Raleigh Durham currently is a seasonal flight. However, they have it on a 10-month schedule. So that's what they call seasonal in this particular case.
Sounds like 3 seasons.
It's a 3 seasonal flight. And that might change depending on how the sales go and what happens. That's a long period of time that they'll consider looking at year-round service, specific for the Raleigh, Durham. Tampa and Orlando are. That's a breeze, and I'm gonna hand it over to Jeff. I just put a quick snapshot of his creative artwork there, and you can talk about our upcoming event with Transcend.
Yeah, I'm really glad I get to draw things rather than play with numbers.
Different creativity.
Different creativity. Well, we don't want creative account.
We don't want plain.
Yeah, right.
No, we're a couple weeks ago we announced our event Transcend. It'll be over in the airfield by Heritage and Beta and the Flight Academy. It will have food trucks. We'll have a couple bands. We're working on some static displays. We'll have a beer garden just to celebrate and watch the solar eclipse. Tickets are on sale now. We've sold about 100 so far, which we're excited about. We have a $5,000 sponsor that should be announced in the next couple of days, with more to come. Our goal is 600 tickets, and we break even on everything that we've been doing for the eclipse to support everything. And we're really excited about it. We'll be giving some tickets away to our team. It's got a lot of buzz. WCAX will be doing a live broadcast here. Hall Communications, which is OKO, and the Buzz, 415, WICN. They really want to be involved with this event. We've had over 900 people interested on it on Facebook. Just started doing some radio ads. We're doing a trade with Vermont Public, and they're going to do some coverage on it as well. So we're really excited. The first time I think we'll really be able to stretch our wings in a large event. This might also also a good trial run, because I know there's going to be larger events, maybe in September, air shows, etc. We can just kind of operationalize some procedures of security. It's an all hands on deck type of event. A lot of moving parts, but the buzz is there. The people are coming. The planes are coming. So we're going to take advantage.
What are the tickets though?
$100 a piece, and they come with 2 drink tickets and glasses, viewing glasses. And if I can get to a certain sponsorship level, we'll probably look at expanding not the food options, but discounted or subsidizing a little bit as well. The kids 12 and under are free.
And overall, the concept of this solar eclipse in our region, as I'm sure many of you have talked about in your various fields, we're expecting a lot of people in the county. We're expecting a huge buzz. This is a partnership with Burlington City Arts and Hello Burlington and the Chamber, along with lots of different entities. We are sponsoring all of the glasses within the city of Burlington that are going to be handed out. So we'll have the airport logo on 50,000 pairs of glasses. Although the forecasted is that the county, the area is going to see around 100 to 150,000 additional people coming to this area to watch this. This is a small, relatively small, it's big, but it's a small space, not physically, but a small space to enjoy this with some of our partners. We are working with the airlines on increasing flights during that week. Right now, their ticket sales are doing really good, and most likely they're going to increase capacity for that entire week for us because they're expecting. Although really where we're seeing it, where maybe Tim can help out with this, is general aviation and vehicular traffic. If you're outside of that totality area, you're going to be driving in or flying in a small plane. So we're expecting quite a few planes, cars, no trains.
Go ahead, Robin.
Oh, you're muted.
No, I couldn't hear very well. Where is the event going to be?
Yeah, this is where we call the Valley West Apron, which
Okay.
with Robin, yeah.
Yeah.
This is
And
down
how
in
many people can we fit there?
hundreds. Yeah, it's a 5-acre parcel of land.
A lot of
Yeah,
people.
so it's when we expanded and like when we did the Pull for Hope, right?
The last one we did was over on the FedEx rim for the pole, the FedEx pole, but it's actually a bigger area on the Valley West apron. Not inclusive of where Heritage is located, but
Yeah. So would you do like all the food trucks and stuff outside of the secure area and then have like a public available in the secure area, if everything is in the secure area?
Everything is inside the airfield.
Sorry?
Everything is inside the airfield.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Awesome. I just heard someone say that despite all the hype that Vermont is getting, we have a 3% chance of being able to see it.
Yeah, well,
We don't control the weather, but we're
Or
gonna.
the forecast looks good.
I
I think we should have some sort of a virtual screen from somewhere else that can see it.
There are airlines that are advertising best flights to book today to get the specific side of the plane to watch the eclipse from the air.
oh, right,
One of the
That's
questions.
really funny. So what do? Hold?
Oh, they're just flying on their path.
let's just do a circle.
Or just
They can sell both sides.
Exactly.
But one time you wanted.
That's really funny, but that's really cool. So this is on the Burlington website? I haven't seen it yet.
Yes, our website, our social media, and we're just starting to get things rocking and rolling from an advertisement standpoint.
Cool.
One of the things that you might see is we have decided on the cost of the price because of course we need to supplement the expenses to the project. So that's where we come up with the cost. Jeff did a phenomenal job running these numbers, even though he said he doesn't like numbers. He's actually incredibly good at it. And it's to control the quantity. We had $25, $50 tickets. We would have too many people on that airfield. We need to control that.
So how much is the ticket? 100? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's cloudy.
Yeah.
And there's a
Eclipse is happening.
limitation
The eclipse is
of how
happening.
many tickets you'll sell.
Yeah, right now I have it capped like around 750, 1,000. And then we have sponsorship tickets that, half of those will actually get used. So yeah, we're watching the quantities pretty closely. We can control it.
And that's why we wanted it to be a celebration, right? We understand the weather, et cetera, but Jeff did a really good job with the entertainment, the trucks, the bands, the sponsorships, the games. It's no matter what, it's going to be a pretty exciting.
Still gonna get dark too.
And still going to
It's
be dark. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, flights don't stop.
That's like, yeah.
That's another misconception. Flights do not stop. The airport is still operational. Flying.
Cool.
All right. Last couple of slides here. I have a quick short look ahead. We have a meeting in 4 weeks. This is February month, but that time frame. I already talked about next week with the inaugural flight with Breeze. We have some cool electric most likely press release coming out in the weeks ahead. We got our peak season coming up, or at least a portion of our peak season with the February school vacation, which is February 4th through the 3rd. Quick update on the picture. Jeff, myself, Kathy Davis, who is the president of the Vermont Chamber, and this is Mike Lum. He is our consultant with Volair, which is an air service development consultant. This is in the United Airlines headquarters in Chicago, in their break room in a 737 engine nacelle, which is something I'd like to bring to there. Pretty cool space. Really good meeting. And then on passenger statistics, displaying it a little bit differently this month versus the spreadsheet. Here's some raw data as well as the graphic indication of where we were through December 2023, which is our latest updates. We're still collecting our January numbers. You can see starting, can't see it. But anyways, the dark blue, it should be darker blue. You can see our numbers there, our line graph there, which unfortunately is too similar to the other color blue, but we can fix that. Yeah, which is the 2019 number, which makes it really hard to see. But the darker blue, if you can see that, is very consistent and over many times, many months last year. And to get it last month, that December with the wind down of JetBlue, and January, we might see that little dip in the numbers, which you see in the raw data over there. Just under 1,000, a little bit more than 1,000 of less than past years from last December. But we're going to see that start climbing back up again because of the breeze flights. March, the Delta Airlines is bringing in a larger aircraft to the Atlanta destination, and April, American Airlines is nearly doubling our capacity at Philly Airport. So our airlines are ramping up and ramping up much earlier than we typically see them. You can see the seasonality coming into the March, April, kind of stays flat year over year, and then May, June, July, we're going to start hopefully forecasting and seeing that in March and April. So a couple months ahead of schedule, which is great. From an operational standpoint, again, we're doing really strong operations, meaning landings and takeoffs. This is a 10-year graph right here, and you can see we're now exceeding 100,000 operations per year. This is through the end of calendar year 2023. You can see a little bit of dip in December over December of last year. And when you run through those numbers, you're really going to notice general aviation has a significant dip in there. December is always dependent on the weather, as we just talked about. So you're going to see changes in that type of activity, the general aviation. What's those?
The difference between general aviation and local traffic?
So yeah, good question. So when you see 1, 2, 3, 4 categories: air carrier, air taxi, general aviation, and military, those are usually full stop, end of flight landings. Whereas local traffic is like touch and go. You're gonna touch the runway, that's gonna count as one operation, and then you're gonna circle back. When you end your flight, you're gonna still be counted as that general aviation. So any landing and takeoff is counted. Some of them do the touch and goes and then go to a different airport, but we still count that as
So I assume David does a lot of touch and
you got it. Yeah, a big part of that general aviation number is the beta training and beta operation, as well as significant amount of clients and customers going to Heritage Aviation. And Vermont Flight. And the Vermont Flight Academy, thank you, yeah.
I just didn't know. Okay.
Go ahead, Robin.
So since we're doing December, we're not able to see the decline with JetBlue and since we didn't start Breeze until the end of January, right? We're not going to see the difference in that data yet, right?
That's right. You saw it a little bit in the December, in the previous slide, the December passenger numbers, where you see a slight decline, and that's a reflection of JetBlue reducing some of their operations and a reduction in their total numbers. You're going to see it again in January with that. What I'm predicting is going to be a small decline in the January numbers before the Breeze numbers comes in February. But you can also see it's not a significant amount, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then parking garage statistics, this is our utilization rate. It has the 2023 numbers in there. And that is I gotta change this color. Well, it's easy to see because the 2023 number is this top line, or the light blue line. And you can see, especially after July, we're consistently over 70% on average utilization of the garage, with even November hitting 80% average utilization. This morning, Marie and Anna we were looking at the utilization. We were at about 94%, I think it was, in our parking garage, although we had to tweak that a little bit with reopening some spaces that we typically close for winter. That's gonna be open by the end of the week to prepare for February vacation, school vacation.
And what percentage is Canadian, do you know?
Good question. We can add that, in there, although there'll be a nice asterisk at the bottom. The scientific way that we study it is counting license plates. Otherwise, we don't have that number, but that's a good statistic there. Yeah. Typically, we look at between 10 to 20% of Canadian travelers. And of course, that's seasonal, depending on the warmer weather, which all of us sometimes want. And that's all I have for you tonight.
All right. Commissioners, anything else for Nick? All right, we'll move on to item 10, which is commissioner items. I didn't receive any in advance, but, oh, go ahead, Raman.
Yeah. Am I muted now? I did it right this time. Okay. So I just wanted to bring up a kind of a quick comment, maybe suggestion for the airport. I came in from Philly Sunday afternoon, and there was a small child sort of playing around the where the baggage comes out. It's a obvious always a fascination, right? And I noticed that we have sort of like a little bit of a kind of a warning thing. I sent Hannah a picture of him. I think he not sure what was going on. He was in full costume with a cape. Lovely young kid. But I was starting to actually really be concerned because he was putting his hands actually on the conveyor belt. And where the belt is already moving and the metal meets, really, really dangerous, right? For a small kid. And as I'm sitting there wondering like what to do while I'm about to witness a potential very bad accident, I was thinking, okay, we used to have presence at the information booth, no presence, not really anybody walking through. And I'm kind of the only one that is sort of getting the fact that this is really dangerous. And so, I finally decided rather than watch a potentially terrible accident, I would just approach the dad. And I actually just introduced myself as a commissioner and told him it was dangerous to have his hands on the belt and could he move just a little bit back. And he was super gracious and it was totally fine. But it occurred to me that a sign about it is such a fascination for kids, right? What is happening behind that thing where the suitcases come out? And I thought it might be a great idea to just have a warning for parents. Hey, do not let your children be on, touching, sitting. And I've seen it at other airports. Don't sit, don't stand, don't touch the belt where the suitcases come out. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. We'll definitely look at that right away. We always like to make sure we address those, especially when the sign is involved. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, anything else? All right, move to item 11, which is follow-up items. We had no follow-up items carry over. Are there any items that need to be put on here so we remember to talk about them in the future meeting?
I didn't get my hand quickly enough before you skipped. This is really a question for, it's for Helen. Is this your last airport commission meeting, Helen, or will you be here for another? Because I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank you if this is your last.
Well, I don't know, actually. I offered to stay on if no one else wants to, but that hasn't been determined. And I actually was going to ask you we make the city of South Burlington makes all their appointments in June.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this one goes through June or if it's so it might be, or it might not.
Well, then in light of that uncertainty, and I appreciate coming from the newest member of this commission, it's probably a little hollow, but it has been a pleasure to serve alongside you. And as a Chittenden County and Burlington commissioner, thank you for everything that you've done, not just for this commission, but in all your roles over the course of the years. And if you're back next month,
we'll do it again.
Well, I'll give the same statement then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe
Well, I would call in, that's all.
Perfect. We'll come and agree that. Airlines that go to Florida direct.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
That's right. So would you contact one?
Yeah, we have all the.
I'm pretty sure it's June 30th.
I think it is.
All the other ones are June 30th too.
All right, well then that would be.
Well, all the
So
special
that's
signs.
how our city does. We may have you for a while longer, and then maybe longer than that, who knows?
Right. All right, so commissioners, anything else? If not, I would move to item 12, which is adjournment. Do I hear a motion for that?
So move.
Oh, Ellen moves. All right, is there a second? Second by Greg. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Any opposed to adjourning? There is. Thanks, everyone.